Welcome back to the watch list. I'm Ryan Dillon. Glucotrack recently announced a change in its business strategy with a transition from non-invasive point-in-time glucose monitoring to continuous glucose monitoring. Joining me with the details is CEO Paul Goode. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And can you explain Glucotrack's shift and what drove this decision?
Sure. At Glucotrack, our vision is to become a leader in the diabetes market, by providing unique products and services to address multiple categories. And, as we looked forward into the market, as well as looking back, we saw that, particularly in the glucose monitoring space, there are three main drivers that stood out that are really behind this transition in our business strategy. And they're all focused around continuous glucose monitoring. First of those is that, that there's been a massive transformation in the diabetes market over the last 5 years, which has shown significant interest and growth in the adoption of continuous glucose monitoring. No doubt, and due in large part to their non-adjunctive status and no longer needing to calibrate. That has fueled growth tremendously. And at that same time, when they're not relying on BGMs anymore and they begin to proliferate, we've seen a declining interest and shrinking revenues from the BGM point-in-time monitoring market. A second major driver was that, this increased uptake has also seen a huge expansion in the insurance coverage for CGM. There's more access, more coverage, and as that continues to grow, there'll be driving demand for more adoption. And this, further underscores the growing demand and for the continuous glucose monitoring options, as it's become effectively standard of care for type 1 diabetes and is migrating into standard of care for type 2, and even with some coverage therein. And then thirdly, there's been, the most recent clinical guidelines, first update in over 10 years, are challenging the effectiveness of non-invasive or even point-in-time, I should say, glucose monitoring for people with type 2 diabetes, which is really, looking and prompting the company to pivot towards, CGM solutions that are already in our portfolio. As you can see, the CGM market alone last year finished at over $8 billion with double-digit growth rates, and this year is probably going to be pushing to $9 billion. And, and again, as I mentioned, it's standard of care for type 1s and eventually type 2s, we believe. So all that evidence really points us to CGM as being the future of diabetes care. And for us to still be relevant and have a vision of being a leader in the diabetes market, we made the decision to transition the business strategy from point-in-time, non-invasive, to a continuous glucose monitoring technology, and in particular with the one that we already have in our portfolio, which is an implantable CGM. Now, this decision may come as a surprise to some of our investors who've been with us for a long time, but we believe it's our first responsibility is to those investors and our shareholders. And we want to make the best decisions, and at times the hard decisions, to ensure that we're singularly focused on pursuing the areas with the greatest commercial opportunity where we'll be successful and bring long-term value to the company.
What kind of progress can investors expect over the coming months?
Well, we're super pleased with the progress we've made thus far in just the last 12 months since starting our program. We initiated and completed a feasibility study that demonstrated both in silico through simulation as well as in vitro in the lab that the chemistry that we're working with will last 2 years once implanted. We kicked off a preclinical animal trial that demonstrated that the device will last, is easy to implant and will function just fine at least 30 days post-implant. That was, again, our first animal trial. Moving forward, we will be rapidly iterating as we have been, continue to rapidly iterate, starting another preclinical trial before the end of this year, which will be a much longer study, and we'll be looking at the accuracy and performance of the device over that time. We will also start a development program to create our commercial version of the product, which would then launch into a first-in-human clinical study next year. And then, of course, steps towards the regulatory approval process and an eventual commercial launch. Our investors should be able to watch us for these particular milestones, throughout the rest of this year and next year, and hold us accountable for meeting these goals as a company that we set forth to bring this technology to market and to millions of people living with diabetes.
And thanks for your time, Paul. Again, that was Paul Goode, CEO of Glucotrack.